Spider-Man, developed by Insomniac Games and released for the PS4 on September 7th, 2018, is one of the best Spider-Man games ever released and is a new standard for how superhero-based video games should be developed. The game solidified itself alongside DC's Batman Arkham series, and gamers can now say that Marvel also has a great superhero series to play as well. The game even got referenced in the new movie Spider-Man Far From Home, with the devs standing up and clapping when Peter strikes this pose in the movie. There's also more than one Easter egg in that movie for this game. Spider-Man was what drove me to pick up a PlayStation for myself, even though the console has so many other great exclusives. This begs the question, what made Marvel's Spider-Man such a great experience? Why do so many game journalists write that it makes you feel like Spider-Man? In this video, we're going to be taking a deeper look at how the game delivers on putting you in the shoes of our wonderful web-slinging, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Firstly, let's get straight to the point and talk about what I think this game delivers on the best, the web slinging. Oh my god, this feels so good to play, as I literally watched my brother web sling through the city for hours on end and never got bored. I wish I had recorded my reaction when I first saw how the web slinging looked. The controls for the web slinging take a bit of getting used to, and I fumbled with them a few times. But soon enough, you will be flying across the city in no time at all. I think the key to what makes the web slinging so good is the amount of options Insomniac gives you when it comes to web slinging, and this helps reflect Spider-Man's versatile nature. Running along city walls, zipping around building corners, catapulting off those buildings, diving to the ground just to web sling in the nick of time. These are all options for how you can get around the city, and all things Spider-Man would do to actually get around. The devs also add in tons of acrobatic animations as Spider-Man zips through the air, so you can get around the city in style. These animations help add to creating a rhythm when web slinging. And I was laughing and going, whoa, pretty much all the while. What also helps is the realistic nature in which Spider-Man web slings. He can only go as high as the buildings are around him, which makes sense because his webs have to stick to something. On the other hand, you can only web sling about as high as the trees are in an area like a park. And if there's no objects to web sling on, then you simply won't. It's great that all of this has to be taken into account when web slinging, as you feel like you have more control as a result, and aren't just letting the game take you on autopilot when traveling. Like I said before, all these options and environmental factors can take some getting used to before being able to seamlessly string them together, and you learn to become more proficient at these techniques. Because at first, it's kind of like,
go web! Fly! Up, up, and away, Web! Go! Go! Go, Web, go!
and then it's like, this is so cool! I can't hear myself over the music! Oh my god! Oh, look at him! He's gonna... Ooh, here we go! Off the wall, man! Ooh! The soundtrack, which also is amazing by the way, will swell and play when web slinging across the city and become louder the faster you go. As you go slower, the music starts to dial it back a bit, and if you come to a stop, the music just stops altogether. I can't tell you how many times I hummed along with the music as I ran across buildings, and this feature is a very nice touch on top of a very well-polished mechanic. Okay, enough gushing about the web slinging. Let's touch on the story a bit. The story is pretty standard for a superhero game, with some mainline villains that Spider-Man has to take down, along with some help from the cops, but I think it's told in a pretty interesting way. I haven't personally read the comics, but apparently some things were changed to make things less predictable for those that have read. Spider-Man has been active for 8 years, but still hasn't fought Doc Ock or the Green Goblin in this universe. Peter and Otto actually have a sort of father-son relationship in this game as well, which is different from the comics, and I think does a great deal for both of them in terms of character development. There are more differences as well as a bit of a different backstory for Miles Morales, among other things, but I'm not going to gloss over them here. Go play the game and see all the differences for yourself. Last but not least, the gameplay. Remember when I was talking about the web slinging before and how the number of options at your disposal when web slinging was key to making it a fun, responsive experience? Well, the same applies to the combat. The game takes a Batman Arkham Asylum approach to combat, but throws in a few factors to make it more interesting. There are enemies that must be dealt with using certain button combinations and with different weapon types that you have to react to in different ways. There are also a plethora of ways to take down your enemies, and all of them a spectacle to watch play out, as well as pull off. You can uppercut an enemy into the air, web him up, and slam him on the ground for an immediate takedown. Different web slinging gadgets that you obtain throughout the game can be used in different situations for maximum effectiveness. Got a group of enemies encroaching you that are bunched up? Use the web bomb to immediately wrap them up quickly in a single shot. See an enemy near a wall that you don't feel like punching the crap out of? Use the impact web to forcibly shoot him into that nearby wall for immediate disposal. Nearby objects and enemies can be thrown to stun a certain enemy from a distance if they're shooting you or bothering you from afar. Environmental factors are key in this game, as Spider-Man's enemies are usually much more powerful or outnumber him. Some of the enemy warehouses in this game, which are essentially just waves of enemies coming at you in hordes, really push you to experiment with the combat as well. It's very satisfying to think of new, effective ways to take down your enemies and seamlessly take them out one by one as you begin to get more and more used to the versatility allowed in Spider-Man's moveset. Do yourself a favor and play the game on hard mode. I know I enjoyed the combat much more that way. Let's move on to side content, which is lacking to say the least in most superhero-based video games. I'd say I enjoyed this game's side content more than the Batman Arkham series, which is the most notable thing I can compare it to. However, that's not to say Spider-Man's side content is all that great. In terms of side content that I did enjoy, there are some small-time copy-paste events that also take place around the city which can give you tokens for completing them. Doing these the first time around can be fun, but they certainly get old after doing them 20 times. The tokens can be exchanged for new Spider-Man suits, some of them being pretty cool and have more than just a cosmetic change. Depending on your suit, your ultimate ability will change into something else. For example, one is the Equalizer, which takes down all enemies in one hit, yourself included. One of the coolest, I feel, is the Iron Man suit power, which brings out spider arms seen in an Avengers Infinity War for use in combat. So at least the small-time side activities do offer some pretty cool rewards. I wish some suits could only be obtained from certain side quests though, as I feel that would be a better way to help encourage me to do more side quests which are different from these side activities I mentioned. So I wouldn't be doing the same side activities over and over to farm tokens for new suits. Two side activities I did enjoy were going around the city collecting hidden backpacks in certain locations for interesting backstory as to the contents of the backpack, as well as taking pictures of famous landmarks found around New York City. Those were the only two side activities I completed out of the plethora available though. So, to elaborate more on those side quests that I mentioned that are quite boring to have to complete, most of the rewards from these said missions are simply experience points. I avoided them for the most part because of this fact, but the game has sections that slow down the pacing deliberately so that you do go actually take a look at the other things the game has to offer, which is quite annoying when you just want to do the main story and avoid these side quests. The best way to sum the side content up generally is that there's a lot to complete, but a lot of it's not very fun.
If it's not fun, why bother?
And that about sums it up. So, all in all, I think Marvel's Spider-Man is a great superhero game due to how many options the game gives you when it comes to its two main things that Spider-Man does best: beating up bad guys and web-slinging across the city. I think this is why the Batman games were also successful superhero games, given the number of gadgets at your disposal for use in combat as well as the gliding mechanic. The two are actually quite similar in terms of exploration and gameplay, although the content and tone of both are quite different. Both make you feel like their respective heroes, as most game journalists love to say, and I'm looking forward to what both series have to offer in the future. What did you guys think about Spider-Man? Do you think it's better in comparison to the Batman games? I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more gaming analysis and commentary, as your subscription helps more than you could ever know. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.